Hello, the aim of this video is to familiarise you with the moderation tool on the EMQN website. To begin, log on to the admin version of the website and navigate to the scheme as you would normally do for assessment. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to use a training module. If your team is going to split into different groups to do the moderation, you can assign different laboratories to these groups using the Overview button. EMQN may have done this in advance for your team. To this, click on Overview, then click on the Moderators tab, and then you have two options. You can manually assign laboratories by clicking on the participant name, dragging it across until you see the blue square and then dropping the name. Or you can use this Moderator Assignment button. So this will automatically assign moderation to any of the assessors. And so I'm going to select one laboratory for two of the assessors, and then it will automatically assign them. You can then manually move them if needed by again clicking the name and dragging them to another assessor. You can find out the language that the participants have submitted reports in on the participant column. So this would normally have the 4-digit EMQN identifier on the left, and to the right it indicates the language the participant says that they've submitted the reports in. Just to note that these are sometimes incorrect and you may need to reassign some of the laboratories as you go along. When you are ready, just go back and you can now go into the marking tool. Before your meeting, EMQN will have moved the scheme into moderation mode. So you can now see the marking status is marking moderation, and that marking is open for moderation. This means that you can now see the marking from all of the assessors that were assigned to the report, and you can also see a column for the final moderated results. If your team has split the reports for moderation, you can select the name of the moderator in this moderator box, and then you will only see the reports that are assigned to that particular person. If you haven't done this, that's fine, but you will just see all of the reports for the scheme. EMQN will have pre-moderated the scheme before your meeting. This means that any sections where the assessors are in complete agreement, or where EMQN can resolve the discordance, for example for clerical details such as page numbering, these cases will already have been moderated. The red, amber, green RAG indicator will help guide you to the reports that need moderating. If the RAG indicator is green, for example for this lab for case 1, the assessors were in complete agreement and EMQN has been able to complete the moderation. You can then just skip this and move on to the next case. If the RAG indicator is amber, then please check the case. Any sections that have been pre-moderated will have a green cross by them, and any that need moderating will have a red cross. So in this example, interpretation needs review because there's discordance between the assessors. To moderate, please review the marking from the two assessors, check any comments, and decide on the appropriate result for the lab against the report. Once you've decided what the final result should be, click the appropriate marking criteria in the moderator column. Once you've added a moderator comment mark for each of the 3 categories, genotyping, interpretation, and patient identifiers, you can then complete the case, and the case will go green, and you can move on to the next case. When you are moderating, please check any comments from the assessors and add them, if appropriate, to the comments boxes. I'll explain in a moment how to use these comments boxes. It's especially important to do this if, for example, you use comment with deduction, so that there's an explanation to the lab for why they've received this mark. If the RAG indicator is red, then it may be because no report has been submitted or because we were unable to pre-moderate this case. So please always check. In this example, the assessors were discordant for all 3 categories. And so all 3 categories will need some review to decide the final moderated mark. So I mentioned that the comments boxes are now available. So these are comments that will go onto the participant's report. There are a couple of options. At the top of the screen, you have the comments for all cases boxes. So these are comments that are applicable to all of the reports. For example, a comment that the report should be anonymised, not have signatures on them, not have real signatures on them. So any comments in these 2 boxes will go onto the participant's individual laboratory report in this general comments section. You also have the same comments boxes for each case, for each category: genotyping, interpretation, and patient identifiers. So these comments will go onto the lab reports in the relevant box in the tables. So for example, for this laboratory for genotyping, they received no deductions, but there was a comment that parentheses should be used because the protein changes a prediction. So in each of these boxes, you'll see any marking criteria that were applied, and then underneath, any comments that were in these case category boxes. In each of the comments sections, there are 2 options for generic comments or for specific comments. Specific comments are free text fields. You can write anything in here, and these are intended for comments that are specific to that particular laboratory. The generic comments boxes are a bank of comments that you can use again and again for different laboratories. You may notice that we've added a thank you comment into the generic comments for all cases box. To use the generic comments box, just click on the grey box and it will bring up the bank. In this free text field, you can add new comments. So just type in the comment, press add new, and this comment has now been added. So if I move to training laboratory 2, if I go back in, instead of retyping, I can now just select that comment. So this is quite useful if it's a comment that you're going to use again and again across the scheme for different laboratories. And it's also a nice way of making sure that the comments are standardised between different moderating groups and across all of the laboratories. Just a comment, if you use these case category boxes, the generic comment will only be available, so in this instance for case 1 for genotyping. If I go to case 2, the comment will not be there, you'll need to add it if it's also applicable for case 2. But once it's been added, it will be available for all of the laboratories as you go along marking. So if you want to add a new comment, you can retype it, or you can also use this comments bank. So it's a search tool where you can search any comments used in this scheme or any other scheme. So if I search example, so you can search free text in the first box. You can search by category in the second box, and by case template, so the scheme name, in the third box. So you can use one of those boxes or all 3 of them if you wish. So if I now copy the example comment, so if you select it, press copy selected, and this comment then becomes available for this case. The other thing you can do is you can edit the comment. So if I click on this, it brings it up in the free text box and I can edit it. Please note that any changes will affect any laboratory that this comment has been applied to in this scheme. So I'm just going to save that. You can also delete a comment by clicking the cross on the right-hand side. But again, deleting a comment will remove it from every lab in this scheme that you've applied it to. So again, just be cautious if you're deleting comments. So just to note, please make sure that you check any of the assessor's comments as you're doing the moderation, and add any educational or explanatory comments that would be helpful for the laboratory to the report. As I mentioned before, also just please add explanatory comments if you're using marking criteria such as misleading interpretive comment or comments with deductions. This is just so that the lab understands why they have lost marks, and it will also help reduce appeals. So I just wanted to show you a couple of example situations as well. So if the lab has been marked with a critical genotyping error or a critical interpretation error, then please just, we'll have left this open for review because of the impact this will have for the lab, because they will receive poor performance if it's a full scheme. So please just check that there is an error within the limitations of the method they've used. And please, for any critical errors, add a comment. This example, I'm going to add that it's a false negative using NGS. This is particularly important for critical errors that are interpretive because it's not entirely clear what the cause of that error was. Okay. Another thing I wanted was just to give you a gentle reminder to please check supporting information. If supplementary documents have been submitted, the supporting documents section will be highlighted in red. In this example, the lab have submitted a letter saying that they're a commercial lab and do not perform clinical interpretation. So in this instance, interpretation should not be marked, and the lab will not receive any marks for this section. If no reports have been submitted, then what you will see is that the report field will be blank and that the marking criteria are unavailable. Please just check all cases because sometimes labs will submit reports for one or two of the cases and not all of them. And once you've checked them, there's nothing further that you can do, so just move on to the next laboratory. You may find a notice of withdrawal letter where the report should be. In this instance, please tick the criterion withdrawn from scheme for the genotyping, interpretation and PICA sections. But we will try to have done this before your meeting. So that's all I wanted to show you. Thank you very much for listening. But if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact the EMQN team at office@emqn.org. Thank you.